We talk a lot about things like rebirth, karma, past lives. But what if I told you the original Buddhist idea is nothing like that soul-hopping journey we all see in the movies? Today, we're going to dive deep into Buddhist rebirth. And trust me, it's a pretty profound, even surprising, take on who we are and the incredible power we have over our own reality.
I mean, who hasn't, right? The idea that we've lived before is just fascinating. And we usually picture this little unchanging soul, our personal essence, that just kind of packs its bags and moves from one body to the next. It's a really common idea, but it's absolutely not the Buddhist one. And this, right here, is the absolute core difference. So on one side, you've got transmigration, which you see in Hinduism, where a permanent unchanging soul, called Atta, literally moves from body to body. But then you have the Buddhist idea of rebirth, which makes a really radical claim. There is no permanent soul. So if there's no soul, what in the world continues?
Okay, so that leads us to the central puzzle of this whole thing. How can you possibly have an identity that carries on from one life to another if there's no soul to carry it? Let's unpack that. It all starts with this concept called samsara. Think of it as this endless cycle of death and rebirth, literally wandering on. The life you're living right now, it's not some standalone event. Nope, it's just one piece, one moment in this huge, continuous process. And it's not just a cycle of bodies, but a cycle of experience, all driven by our actions and their consequences. So a good way to picture it is to think of your life not as its own separate story, but more like a single link in a chain of lives. It's this immense chain that stretches way back into the past and reaches far out into the future. Every link is unique, for sure, but it's also completely connected to the ones that came before and the ones that are going to come after. Which, of course, brings us right back to that huge question. If it's not a soul, what is the thread that's connecting all these links in the chain? What is it that's actually passing from one life to another? The answer is something called the Chitta Santana, a stream of consciousness. Okay, imagine your mind isn't a solid thing, but more like a flowing river. Each and every moment of consciousness pops up, exists for just an instant, and then fades away. But in that tiny instant, it passes all its information, its habits, its tendencies, all its experiences to the very next moment. It's a totally unbroken causal flow. So you see, you're not a thing that has experiences, you are the process of experiencing itself. There's this famous candle analogy that makes this whole abstract idea way more concrete. So picture a lit candle, that's a life. Now you use its flame to light a brand new candle. Okay, is the flame on that second candle the exact same flame as the first? No, of course not. The fuel, the wax, and the wick is totally new. But it is entirely and causally dependent on that first flame. That's rebirth. A new life begins totally distinct from the last one, but its existence is a direct result of it. So if rebirth is the process of that flame getting passed on, what decides how bright or dim that new flame is? What's the engine that's driving this entire cycle? Well, that brings us to karma. Kamma literally just means action, but, and this is the key, it specifically means volitional action, the intention, the will behind the act. That's everything. If you accidentally step on an ant, there's no real karmic weight to that. But if you act with a clear intention, that action becomes a cause that will absolutely have an effect. And we create this karma through three main channels or doors: what we do with our body, what we say with our speech, and maybe most importantly, what we think with our mind. Every single intentional thought, word, and deed is planting a karmic seed. So, what makes an action wholesome or unwholesome? Well, it all comes down to its roots. On the left, you've got the unwholesome roots, things like greed, hatred, and delusion or ignorance. And on the right, you've got their wholesome opposites, generosity, goodwill, and wisdom. These are the fundamental drivers that decide the quality of the karma you're creating. All right, so we've got these intentional actions all rooted in these wholesome or unwholesome states. What happens next? How does this actually shape our reality? Well, karma works in two ways. It has an immediate psychological effect, right? It shapes your character, your habits, right here now. But it also acts like a seed that gets planted in your stream of consciousness. And that seed is going to ripen in the future, maybe in this life, maybe in a future one, as a specific experience or situation. And where do those karmic seeds actually lead? Well, wholesome actions, the ones rooted in generosity and goodwill, they can lead to really fortunate rebirths, like in the human world or even these pleasant heavenly worlds. Really deep meditation can lead to even more subtle realms. But unwholesome actions, the ones rooted in greed and hatred, they can lead to rebirth in states of misery. The actions you choose directly influence the destination. This leads to a really stunning idea. These different worlds or realms of existence, they aren't just random places you might land. They are, in fact, the outer projections of our own internal mind states. So in a very, very real sense, your mind is the architect of the universe it experiences. And all of this culminates in one powerful conclusion: radical personal responsibility. Your present situation, your personality, your experiences, they are the result of karmic seeds that you yourself planted in the past. Now, I know that might sound a little deterministic, but it's actually the setup for ultimate freedom.
Because if we are the ones creating our own suffering through Kamma, it also means we hold the key to ending it. This is the path to freedom. It's all about breaking the cycle.
And here is the pivot. Yes, the past created the present, but volitional action, the creation of new karma, that happens only in the present moment, right here, right now. This means that no matter what has happened before, you always have the power in this very moment to change the future.
And get this, the ultimate goal isn't just about racking up good karma points to trade in for a better life next time around. It's about getting off the ride altogether. It's about stopping the planting of any new seeds and stepping off the wheel of samsara for good.
That ultimate freedom is called nibbana. It is the end of the cycle, and it's achieved by following a really practical path of ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. A path that eliminates the very roots of kamma, that ignorance and clinging that keep us stuck on the wheel. Once those are gone, your actions no longer create karmic seeds, and the cycle of rebirth finally comes to an end. So this whole system, from the stream of consciousness to the law of karma, it places all the power squarely in our hands. It's telling us that this present moment is infinitely precious because it's the only place where we can actually shape our future. So the only question left to ask is, what will you choose to create?